Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Minagoroshi Part 7. We're in the home stretch now. The last few moments, our characters have already perished, and we are merely reading the follow-up information regarding the Hinamizawa syndrome and a few extras. Let's see. This information regards Hinamizawa syndrome. It's an infectious disease caused by a virus, and there's no initial symptoms. Instead, their onset begins when the patient's emotional state becomes unstable or if the queen carrier dies. Rika was presumably the queen carrier. Not that we'll be able to test that, since, well, we're dead now. Yeah, sorry we had to duck off last time. It was getting really late. I didn't realize how late it was getting. So, we kind of stopped at an awkward part halfway through a scene. The main symptoms of the illness are hallucinations and emotional instability, paired with an extreme persecution complex, literally just being crazy paranoid and delusional. Furthermore, patients are frequently unaware of their own mental abnormalities, making identification outside examination nearly impossible. The only way to do so is by observing symptoms indicative of terminal abnormal behavior. In many cases, patients engage in antisocial behavior, which is the largest issue created by the syndrome. This behavior is caused by hormonal factors, as the disease mainly affects the mind as opposed to the body. A disease of the mind and spirit, and not one of the body. In the end, the patients will experience extreme irritation in their lymph nodes, and they'll claw at their throat or wrists. It's the only symptom that's recognized by the patient. Important points regarding the sterilization operation. This is an advisory notice for the virus control. Oh, right, as I recall, they intentionally gassed everyone in the city, killing them all en masse, to hide the fact that they'd tortured a few people to death for the lulz. Right, I forgot that part. The government is not exactly a bunch of wonderful people in this setting. As it turns out, there is no mystery, there is no magic, there is no actual horrifying things, only your own government doing horrible things to you for seemingly very little reason. We haven't been provided a reason, that's why I say perhaps we'll get to Kano's perspective in Part 8, where she has a legitimate reason for killing everyone in the town, and, like, torturing you to death repeatedly, but, you know, we don't know that one yet. This is an advisory notice for virus control. The pathogen is an airborne infectious virus. Therefore, no effective preventative methods exist, and inoculation is required. They also don't give inoculations to people they inoculate. The inoculations aren't real. They trick people so that they can later murder them on demand with an untraceable pathogen. Interesting choice on their part. After the mission's completed, all staff members must take a medical exam, and those with positive tests must come forward. Be cautious when interacting with the carriers. Even after inoculation, any contact with their bodily fluids will cause infection. Do not come into direct contact with them. If assumed infected, individuals must use the testing syringe and test themselves for the disease. If you feel an extreme irritation in your lymph nodes, it's likely you have terminal symptoms. In that case, you must get tested immediately. If test results come out positive, inject the treatment medication C120. If the irritation persists after 10 minutes, use a second injection. If there's no change in symptoms, seek treatment at headquarters. Do not use C120 if your test results are not positive. If used on a healthy body, symptoms of high fever, rashes, dilated pupils, and hallucination will be observable within 10 minutes. Damn. That's a fucking serious cocktail of drugs. If you use it when healthy, like imagine if you didn't have a sufficiently high enough fever, and the minute you took like some Tylenol, you'd suddenly get a huge fever, rashes, and start hallucinating. Like you'd be tripping fucking balls within 10 minutes for not having like enough symptoms of a headache. That's rough. If this one occurs, one must seek treatment at headquarters. Okay. Government officials explained the entire situation in a luxurious meeting room adorned with a marble table and crystal ashtrays. Chief Cabinet Secretary was in a panic. He'd never heard about this before. Feelings of panic were only natural. One girl's death was going to drive 2,000 villagers into a frenzy. Hearing that a disease like that exists was surprising enough, but on top of it, it was secretly researched for military use and there was a horrific situation caused by the director of the local research institute engaging in embezzlement? That doesn't even make sense. That doesn't even follow from, like, any basic rationality. It's like, okay, so my own lieutenant tortured this girl to death because the other guy might have killed her boyfriend and is thus dooming thousands of people to death, and you're just like, well, okay. Governments are fucking weird, man. I've never heard of such a dangerous disease. There's no cure for it? No. According to the National Research Center, they recently found a method of treatment, but they're still not capable of administering the treatment to the whole village. The entire populace is going to develop terminal symptoms in the next 24 to 48 hours. It's going to be a disaster. The danger of this syndrome was explained over and over to the chief secretary. He didn't have anything more to say, but that didn't mean he could blindly accept it either. He simply couldn't believe the only way to resolve the situation was to kill all 2,000 villagers. I understand, but I can't give approval to kill an entire village. Why was it being studied in secret? Isn't this the responsibility of those funding the research? Such a dangerous disease can't be of any benefit to this country. It's the year 1983, for crying out loud. According to these documents, they intentionally held off exterminating the disease so they'd have more time to study it. On top of that, this chaos was caused by a single researcher. This is an act of terrorism. It's the fault of those old men in Tokyo. They better take responsibility for this shit. Get rid of the people who are still haunted by the ghosts of the war. This is a good opportunity to rid Tokyo of its festering pus. We will discuss the issue of responsibility in due time, but we must make a prompt decision about this. A man standing by the window slowly turned around and opened his mouth. Prime Minister, please give us your decision. And what happens if I don't approve this resolution? Well, almost 100% of the population of the village will develop terminal symptoms in 36 hours. They'll be overcome by persecution complexes and begin behaving violently. Suicide, murder, arson, robbery, rape, some of the things we predict will happen. There'll be no peace within the village. It probably won't stay within those boundaries either, but spread throughout the area. As a result, the whole world will discover this disaster, and sooner or later, they'll find out about this disease. How will they discover this disease if it literally can't exist outside a living host, and they're all dying? It'll be a great advantage for the opposition during the next election. That's kind of funny, because it's kind of funny. I don't know how the Japanese government actually... I don't know how the Japanese government actually cares. I can understand how Singapore, I think it is, their government cares about the election, because they're really harsh on the opposition and fuck with them super hard to stay in power. But the Japanese government doesn't fuck with their opposition. Their opposition just isn't that popular. And the opposition, for anyone who doesn't know, the Japanese government has literally never elected another party. They are effectively a one-party country. The opposition basically just exists to make talking points and look pretty because they don't actually do anything. They've never held power. So when he's like, it'll be an advantage for the opposition, I'm just like, come again? Japan doesn't have an opposition party. They have a party that makes comments on the others. On the flip side of things, they have a commentary party and a real party. Tokyo will also voice their criticisms of the Prime Minister. You'll need their approval to make your political plans come to fruition. More than anything, the government might reveal this secret research was conducted for military purposes. If this happens, the country will have a crisis of faith in their leadership. And if I approve this, well... So, if he doesn't approve of killing all these people, whoever's telling him this will do their best to fuck his entire political career. And if he approves of it, they'll disguise it as a natural disaster, so the opposition might attack us for our blunder, but they won't discover the existence of the disease. If by chance the world finds out, well, our nation would lose its initiative in the Asian region. Apart from those nations, it's a necessity for us. If we lose their trust, the opposition will come into power after the next election. Every time he says that, oh my goodness. Japan will be finished. According to our simulations, the balance of power will shift drastically if the second and third parties form a coalition government. The whole world will hold us responsible. The UN will accuse us of developing WMDs. Neighboring countries' governments will lead smear campaigns against us, drawing a hard line of anti-Japan diplomatic policies with high approval ratings. In every way possible, the government of this country will be burned to the ground. So we'll lose the trust of our allies, huh? Yeah, well. So this isn't just the problem of the several 100,000 people who live around the area, is it? But it's way too difficult to cover up that many casualties. The most important thing is to prevent the public from knowing this country was researching biological weapons. Well, I guess we'll be wiping the ass of the ghost of the war. Are you sure this operation can be performed secretly? If this mission goes public, it'll be a bigger scandal than the research itself. It'll be kept secret. There's special units working on this case. They are trained specifically for situations like this. Aren't they the people who caused the situation for the lulz? It seems really weird to cause the situation. Seems really weird to cause the situation and then claim that you have to cover it up or it'll be a disaster. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. You have nothing to worry about. I've never heard a mission like this, but it's basically mass murder via gas, right? I had no idea there were units specifically trained for that. Well, in order to know how to protect themselves from gas attacks, they have to know what gas warfare is about. And to know how to fight against an enemy using gas, they must know how to kill with it. The equipment research unit is prepared for any kind of attack. He let out a small sigh. He couldn't see the line between ethical and unethical. Can any research be justified by the excuse of preparing against hostilities? But I guess that's what preparation's all about. Some evils must be accepted as necessary. The Erie Institute was one such evil, so we have to make a secret decision to keep this research undisclosed. Approving this makes us guilty. Are you sure no information will leak from the members of this unit? It won't happen. The members were carefully selected from a group of extremely loyal men. We've never performed an operation such as this, but they're experienced and they won't leak anything whatsoever. An assassination unit, huh? Prime Minister, please give the approval to administer Emergency Manual 34. Director General of Defense, are you sure this will succeed? Are you sure we can stop this from going public? No. Can you keep casualties to a minimum? Sir, the preliminary orders have been sent out and preparations are complete. We'll execute the mission as soon as we get your approval. I can't give the approval to slaughter 2,000 innocent people, but as Prime Minister, I do have an obligation to minimize the casualties. Prime Minister, I understand your dilemma. Director General, please make a concerted effort to minimize the number of victims. If these 2,000 people can't be treated, please do what's best to prevent additional victims. Sir, thank you for your approval. We'll return with positive results. So, like, the Director General is just like a psychopath, I guess? That's the conclusion I'm coming to, is the Director General probably needs to be removed from power. You can call 2,000 casualties a positive result. Okunuku. Set up a meeting with Tokyo as soon as possible. I have to hear an explanation directly from them. Understood. By the way, did they arrest that Erie Institute doctor? No, he killed himself by taking poison. He was in such a rage that his research was being shut down, he felt like his life was being denied. So no one will know what made him commit such a horrific crime. Execution of Emergency Manual 34 approved. June 23rd. Prime Minister XX. We can go look who was Prime Minister in June 23rd, 1983. Let's see. Japanese ministers 80s. Let's see. 1983, Yasuhiro Nakasone. It looks like he was in charge. 1982 to 1987, Yasuhiro Nakasone. President of Japan, and we could probably look up who the General of the Defense Minister was. Yasuhiro? Yep. Yep. But not that Yasuhiro. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking Yasuhiro, he's gotta be like that crazy, psychic guy. No. For logistical reasons, you may not bring any large items with you. You can't carry any luggage. I repeat, no luggage. You can only carry valuable items such as bank books and cash. Do not use your own vehicle to evacuate. It will cause confusion. It was the middle of the night, and yet countless villagers were out and about. Some of them were locking their doors, some of them were watering their plants, some of them were piling up food in dogs' dinner bowls. Small children cried in fear. Members of the council were yelling angrily while counting the villagers. Reportedly, the village had been cut off from the rest of the world after volcanic gas gushed out of the mountains. The number of policemen and military units in the village added the strong smell of sulfur in the air dispelled any doubts the villagers might have had. The more religious among the elderly were convinced this was the curse of Rika, who passed the day before. They were certain Oyashiro was enraged and that the door to hell had been opened. Soldiers wearing gas masks guided the villagers to the evacuation center. Why do you all have guns? To protect your homes after the evacuation. We're expecting looters. No one in Hinamizawa would do something like that. This is the first platoon. Evacuation on schedule. Roger. We'll send our platoon over. Excuse me, I need to bring my grandfather's mortuary tablet? You may take that with you. Please hurry. Make sure everyone in the village is here. Please come forward if you're unable to walk. A soldier will come help you. Oyashiro's angry because Rika was murdered. Oyashiro, please forgive us. Remember our emergency drills. Group leaders have to contact a town council member when everyone in their group shows up. Miasma is going to come from the swamp. Oyashiro must be furious. There's too many of us here. We'll never make it alive. Let me die in the village. Oh, don't worry. Helicopters and buses are there to transport everyone's body to safety. You're all gonna make it out okay. Everyone gather. The forestry service. No, not the people from District 4. You go to the community center behind the post office. It's exactly the same as in the emergency drills. Please calm down. Head to your evacuation point. Who the fuck has an emergency to evacuate the town on a regular basis? Please move as a group. Every person matters. Everyone stick together. You'll get home safely. Villagers couldn't see the expressions under the soldiers' gas masks. They wondered what kind of expression they were hiding under their gleeful ones. Anyway, the soldiers were of course lying to the villagers, knowing they'd never return to their homes again. One such creeper cried under his mask, but the villagers never saw his tears. Please go back. You can't take your own vehicle to evacuate. The road ahead is cut off by a gas stream and it's dangerous. Can't you smell the sulfur? Some people tried to leave in their cars so as to take large items with them. However, the quarantine unit sealed off the roads leading outside. The gas masks of the troopers and the smell of the sulfur persuaded them to return and obey their instructions. Some of them tried to contact Okinomiya, but their phones wouldn't connect. The lines were busy no matter how much they tried. They simply assumed the phone lines were overwhelmed because of the disaster. That's not a thing. Some of the villagers had access to radios. They tried to figure out what the situation was like, but all they could hear over the radio was loud static. It was the same with the television. They couldn't contact anyone outside the village, so they were totally isolated. Because remember, the reason they can't contact anyone isn't because the military is executing 34. It's because before they murdered Rika, they cut the phone lines. So they were planning on killing them regardless, and the general's lying to the prime minister. So far, they had nothing to rely on but the instructions of the police and the military. They were all like moths headed towards a light, never doubting they'd be safe there. One old war veteran listened to the noise from the radio and muttered, "This is how it sounded when the Americans jammed the radio during the war." As it turned out, he was absolutely correct. However, he turned off the radio when his son urged him to evacuate. The villagers all gathered at their evacuation points. Some of them were at the school, some were at the community center. They were to stay in the building until evacuation vehicles arrived. The soldiers told them to stay inside so they could keep track of the number of evacuees. "Please close all the windows. Prevent the gas from entering." Dear you, yeah, it's a little bit sad, isn't it? We'll be sealing the windows to be on the safe side. Your cooperation would be appreciated. Alright. Let's help them out. People started sealing the windows and vents with the duct tape that was handed to them. They completely sealed every opening, even as they heard the disquieting conversations of the soldiers. It was long past 3 a.m., but everyone was wide awake with fear. They were having an extremely long night. Coincidentally, the end of their night had almost arrived. This is all Oyashiro's curse. Rika. Oyashiro demoned away those kids at the shrine in his fury. The shrine was swallowed by the world of the demons that day. Demons chewed up her guts while she was still alive. They all started saying the gas disaster was caused by the curse of Oyashiro-sama, and Rika's death and the mysterious disappearance of her friends and the 2 detectives were also the result of the curse. People started talking about being demoned away. They had no idea that Keiichi and his friends' short battle sealed their fate for that night. The more religious villagers had become convinced the children and detectives went missing because they volunteered to become a sacrifice to calm Oyashiro's anger after Rika's death. They didn't know the truth. They couldn't know. No one realized that Keiichi and his friends' efforts had all been in vain. Indeed, In Hanamizawa, everything that happens is the will of Oyashiro-sama. But why did it have to be that way? Well, before the series of mysterious deaths occurred, no one really used the term the curse that frequently. In other words, who set them up? Well, people in the village were set up to believe that the curse happens every year. They really are just too superstitious. Major, we finished gathering the villagers together. The last family finally reached their assembly point. We've got everyone. Good. It's finally it. The curse will become a reality tonight. See what I mean when I said the soldiers are laughing their asses off? Reenacting with Tanagashi on Rika, Oyashiro's punishing the village. The curses the last 5 years, culminating the biggest curse of them all. It's not just a mysterious chain of murders. It's divine punishment from an enraged god. Let's begin. This is Company Commander. The men are requesting 1 minute of silence. Those men are trying to make this look good. Can you let them have that? Oh, do as you like. The company commander crossed his heart and began to speak. Dear Heavenly Father, guide these innocent people. Their sacrifice will save the lives of others to come. Press X to doubt. Please forgive us for committing this sin. Please forgive us for being here today. The company commander isn't Christian. He's a psychopath and making jokes. He doesn't follow any religion, but he prayed because he felt the need to ask someone for forgiveness. He wasn't even sure he's saying it, but he still prayed to God. Press X to doubt. Third party. Press X to doubt. Company commander killing 2,000 people for his own amusement after torturing someone to death so he could kill them. Pressing X to doubt on his on this monologue. Is it bad to kill is it bad to kill someone for your own amusement, or is it worse to kill them for your own amusement and then pray about it so you're putting on an act like you're sad before you kill them? I feel like it's like extra insulting, but it's all right. Takano speaking in a soft voice, talking to herself. For you know not what hour your lord doth come, but know this, the good man of the house has known, and watched the thief would come, he would have watched, and would not have suffered his house to be broken. They're both bad. I mean, they're both bad. I guess they're both pretty bad. But I feel like feigning. I feel like feigning feeling sorry for someone is like extra douchey. Because at least if you're just killing if you're just like, you know, let's just say you don't give a fuck about people and you're just killing someone because you're in this for yourself. You know, you're being selfish. That's fair. That's fair. You're being selfish, okay? I can understand being selfish, but I don't understand like being like, well, we set it up perfectly. We can kill all these people now. Isn't this great? Anyway, I'm going to say a prayer for these people. And you're like, oh, you're like, oh, I'm gonna like say a prayer so people think I'm sorry that I'm killing these people. Like, I think you're just a colossal douchebag at this point. Like, the selfish thing, fine. Like, do your thing. People are selfish all the time, but like feigning caring for someone while you're doing literally the opposite seems way worse, right? Like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm gonna kill. It's like, you know, when you're like joking around and you're like, well, sorry, I just like knocked you off the track while we're racing or something, you know. Sometimes you're actually sorry, and sometimes you just push them off the track and you're like, oops, you know. And it's clearly like a little bit insulting. It's just like extra insulting for no reason to say that. It's the hot mommy. Yeah, you can go with that if you want to. One man heard her murmurs. That's from the Gospel of Matthew, is it? My grandfather said it to me. He is telling me to work hard every day and you'll never know when you'll be rewarded. Is this a reward for you? Absolutely. Although you may never understand it. Excuse my rudeness, I believe the descent of God is a merciful thing. I think what you're saying is inappropriate for a time like this. He's trying to tell her that using the verse of the Bible is inappropriate for the occasion. No, it's perfectly appropriate. Takano simply laughed as though she heard something very funny. Sorry. So, remember, she's in the exact same room with the exact same people that she was, like, convincing to set up for the murder of Rika so she could execute this operation. So, the guy's, like, just memeing. He's like, oh, that's a little bit inappropriate. Anyway. You have no right to judge. Today is the day I become God. And with the end of this silence, execute the operation. The order was given. Now my ideals are complete. This is a literal utopia, and here I am God. The curse engraved here will be passed on forever. People were packed into the classroom. They were afraid. The troops closed the door of the classroom. The people inside had no idea why they're doing that, but they didn't suspect anything at all. One old man walked up to the door to open it because with it closed it was too hot in the room. But he collapsed all of a sudden. His wife tried to walk over to help him, but she also collapsed all of a sudden. And then other people started collapsing inside of the room. It really was an odd sight. What would make for a good example? Well, it'd be pretty amusing if they were dominoes, but they're human beings. People sitting by the window watched this strange event happen before their eyes. They opened them wider to try and understand what was going on. A god has reawakened from a long slumber thanks to the Dam War, who curses non-believers on the sacred night of Watanagashi year after year. He awakened, the mighty Oyashiro awakened, and so they regressed to their primitive fear of the curse. So I'm curious what 8th is going to reveal about this motivation, as, of course, this seems senseless, but there is clearly a motivation, as the last several times we've had people killing people for the lulz, it's been motivation, although the motivations have been slightly vague. The door creaked open slightly, and someone on the other side threw 3 spray canisters into the room. More people started collapsing, even those at the window. This wasn't something happening only in one room, it was happening in all the other rooms too. It was happening in all the evacuation centers. I don't know why you'd ever go to an evacuation center anyway. People's dreams, their hopes, and their futures were taken away so quickly and easily. Because I just gotta point out, buses are not fucking, like, sealed containers. Like, they're like, we're gonna call in buses, and I'm like, a bus is not a sealed container. Those don't exist. It's like, those don't exist. You could maybe say, like, we're gonna get some, like, sealed troop transports, because some of those are amphibious and thus have to be waterproof. But if you told me a school bus was coming to pick me up, and that I couldn't leave town because of a gas attack, I'd be like, are you fucking insane? School buses have holes all over the place. Tons of ventilation. Sometimes you can't even remove it. The curse is finally realized, boys. There was a commotion in the reception room by the principal's office. Someone figured out what was going on and broke the seal off the window, escaping outside. Others tried to remove the seal on their windows, but they collapsed in a matter of seconds. What will be left behind when you die? Your body will rot to the bone and be crushed into sand. What more can you leave behind beyond fertilizer for the earth? Someone escaped from the reception room. 4 people are loose. You have permission to fire. Shoot, shoot, shoot! Pop, pop, pop. The soldiers shot the people who tried to escape in the back. The sound of the gunshots echoed in the silence. It was a noise filled with cruelty as they helplessly fell down to the ground. Their deaths were pitiful compared to the silent deaths of those before them. The residential police officer was one of the escapees. He tried to shoot back at them with his own gun. His shots could be heard throughout the building. The soldiers ducked into the shadows upon hearing the noise. I hope the soldier got a couple headshots. The officer seized his chance and ran towards the gate, but that was just a waste of time. Not only is the range of automatic weapons they're using longer than the length of the schoolyard, but as trained professionals, it'd be nothing for them to shoot him from that distance. The villagers had no choice. Either they die from the gas without realizing what was happening, or they find out about the mission and be killed. What happened? Did they fight back? Respond! Respond! We've shot all the fugitives. One of the residential policemen shot back. Collect the bodies. Don't put them with the other corpses. The soldiers walked over to the 4 fallen bodies. They needed to make sure they were dead, not just injured. I will remain my name, a great undertaking, a curse left behind. My presence will be forever deified in this land, and those who escape today's curse will be in awe of it. They'll pass that fear to others, and the memories of those herds of people will sublimate into me, transcending me. This is 1st Platoon. Forestry Service building's been sterilized. 4 escaped. We took them down. 2nd Platoon. Sterilization complete. No one escaped. 3rd Platoon. More than 10 escaped. We're conducting a sweep. It'll be over soon. 4th Platoon. Sterilization complete. So in conclusion, 100% of these 4 platoons or platoons don't have any objection to murdering civilians. Good to know that, as there was no commentary on anyone objecting to that. Maybe they don't have any incentives for moral. Maybe they don't have any moral objection rules in the Japanese Defense Force. This is 3rd platoon. We took out all 13 fugitives. Sterilization complete. Roger. Start counting the bodies. Make sure the total counts the number counted tonight. Takano was laughing to herself inside of the van. She didn't physically see all the people dying silently, but she saw it anyway. She saw countless people dying without noticing it. She saw it all in her mind. Takano waved her arms in the air. No one was watching. No one would understand what she was doing, even if they were. She was waving her baton, pretending she was the conductor of this silent funeral march. Major, sterilization complete. We're gonna reconnect the phone lines. Go ahead. This is the Institute Concealment Unit. We've removed all the classified items and welded the entrance shut. We're currently flooding the underground facility. This is the Traffic Blockade Unit. Everything is proceeding as scheduled. This is communication sabotage. We have reconnected the phone lines. Telephone facilities back to normal. Because remember, there's the communication sabotage unit. They were acting before she was killed, right? They were acting before Rika was killed. So when they say they're feeling sad, I'm like, I don't really think these soldiers feel sad when they were in position and already cut the phone lines before the reason they would execute this order we're given. Takano was paying no attention to the reports. She continued to sing the melody of an orchestra. One operator spoke to her. You seem to be in a good mood. Oh yes, it feels so good. I bet you can't hear it. The hymn that glorifies God. A hymn. Takano laughed loudly, spreading her arms wide. That's right, the hymn. A new god descended on this village. There was no god in Hinamizawa. Oyashura was just a name. It was an old backwater village with no real god. But I brought a god to this place. Do you know what that means? I bet you don't. How many gods in this world have the power to curse people? How many of them can challenge people? None of them. But I did it. Takano laughed as if she was the only one who could comprehend what she was saying. None of the operators inside the car could comprehend her laughter, and Takano was satisfied to know that. A god's not a god without a curse. Gods are feared because of their curses and worshipped because they're feared. That's the truth of gods. If faith alone creates a god, there's no need for curses, but ancient gods all created humans. So remember, she feigned her own death she faked her own death, but the military still knows she's alive. So they're like 100% planning this from the start. The question is like more like why they're doing it than rather how they're doing it. As obviously we're getting an easy explanation here. As it doesn't make any rational sense for the government to kill all these people. But they were planning it ahead of time, and presumably lied to the Prime Minister? So we'll probably get like a Takano perspective in Part 8. Otherwise it seems pretty pointless. What's a god's curse? The proof that a god's real. Gods aren't gods if they don't curse people. Or the Japanese government is just presumed to like massacre people who do anything to get in their way of making a dam, but that seems unnecessary? It's not like there's only one mountain in Japan that you can set up dams on. I found evidence of the existence of God in this poor village. I thought this was a message from heaven. Hinamizawa was without a god for 100 years until the end of the dam conflict. I believe it's my mission to restore the god's existence in this village. And heaven supported me and granted me power. Actually, I'm surprisingly, yeah, it did. The god of this village is actually the most useless piece of shit we've ever seen. Not talking about Takano, by the way. We're talking about Hanyu, who's literally the most useless goddess. I mean, we like memeing that, what's-her-face from Konosuba is a useless goddess. Aqua, there we go. Aqua is a useless goddess. And so is Ishtar, but I believe they actually try to do things when they want to. Poor Hanyu. Oh, Hanyu's lived an entire century and done fuck all, so you'll see when you read Hanyu's backstory. Hanyu's lived an entire century with Rika and done sweet fuck all. Including, in her first perspective, not even doing one thing, so I think she's a useless goddess. Alright, I raised the bud of a curse playing with the faint seeds of coincidence granted to me by heaven, and now this curse bears fruit hanging ripe. Do you understand? Tonight's the night of the harvest. So, I'm curious though, because maybe like I don't know if Takano's actually just like a crazy person. Maybe this is what they do. She just goes to villages. She just goes to villages and like tries to set up the conditions to massacre them, and then does it again and again. That might be her thing. It's gotta be weird though, right? Like if you're working for the government, surely you recognize when like this person, every place you station them, after like 3 years, everyone in the entire city has to be massacred. That seems like you would notice that after like, I don't know, the second time. This is the final curse of Oyashiro. From this day forth, Oyashiro will be a real god. You may not see it now, but someday you'll understand. You'll see how grand this plan I accomplished was, how long it will be told in history, and how great I'll become. It's like, okay, this person's faked their death on multiple occasions. We have the reports. We have the reports of this person dying. And then the next day, we have to kill everyone in the town. This is clearly a pattern, right? Even now, one time of faking your own death so you can do something seems like a little bit weird. I'll make that curse happen. I'm the curse of Oyashiro. Worship me and be fearful. I create not only death, I write history. And history will speak of this curse and remember my existence forever. That it will. So far, I'm the curse itself. I've transcended this flesh and my legend will continue beyond my mortal life. My existence is eternal now. Curse yourselves and your powerlessness. Realize how great I am. I am Ashiro. Oyashiro-sama, a god now. My flesh may die, but I'll remain in this world forever. True, she's actually more powerful than God, so that's pretty cool. I'm Oyashiro-sama, this is the curse. They'll worship, idolize, and fear me, and when I move, they'll beg for no curse, no death. My work will be historic, and my existence and the history of this curse will be told for ages. Maybe. I don't know about that one. You did kill everybody who knew about the curse. So that's a little bit tough. I've transcended beyond my body of flesh, becoming the curse, and if this body decays, my work will remain forever. I've achieved immortality. It's only one town. It's only one town. Someone might recognize that the event happened, but I'm gonna be honest. A small town going humans, flesh is your curse. When your body decays, you can't leave anything behind. Your malice regrets fear. And you'll know my greatness. I've become Oyashiro, to reach the realm of the gods. If my body is destroyed, what I've achieved will be passed forever. I've achieved eternal life. I'm gonna be honest. I bet most people can't name every single leader of their country. Even though you could Google those. The events that happen in one village are not going to last very long, in most people's minds. Especially if you intentionally hit it. Alright. And that should be the end of this arc. And bit of a grim ending, but it is what it is. It's the ending we get every single arc anyway. Yeah, town, it's a village. Yeah, close enough. I'm using them interchangeably because, in my opinion, the scenario jump mode, yep, is unlocked. I use them interchangeably because I don't feel like I have a strict boundary on the definition between a town and a village. The tips are unlocked. We can read some tips and I hear the extra for this one's actually really good. Staff room. A thank you message for purchasing the game. Hey. But we'll obviously check out any final tips, see if there's any new information. We haven't seen their reasoning yet. Let's see. Extra. Let's go. Tips. Any new tips? Faded notebook, faded notebook. Have we read Fragments End already? I guess Rika managed to assemble all the pieces to her puzzle. But we don't know yet if her memories will pass on to her next life. That's true. She always loses the memory of her death, so this should repeat forever. I don't know if she can retain the memories of what she's discovered. What did you think, Will? Did you have fun? Presumably she'll retain more memories this time. Once you find out the answers, collecting them isn't so fun anymore. You don't agree? Well, I see. You might still find something different by examining some old fragments. After all, the time we have here is endless. We have to find something to play with because there's, well, nothing to do here. For me, playing with these fragments stops being fun when I find out what's inside. But if you can tell me how to have fun with them even so, that makes you pretty smart. Oh, what? You want to know what I play with? Oh, I don't play, I just kill time. I like to imagine what Rika could have done in order to achieve the future she hopes for. I like to imagine a world that would have been happy for all of them. It would be pretty hard, but you could do it. After all, your whole team is, After all, if Rika takes the initiative and just, axes Takano a couple questions, do the old Reina strat, hack her up and bury her somewhere else, that would theoretically work, that would theoretically work. Chop her up and leave her in pieces, although you'd have to then kill all of the mountain dogs, and there's 20 plus of those. How many platoons was that? That was 4 platoons, right? You'd have to kill up to 4 platoons. That could be rough. You'd have to kill up to 4 platoons of people who conspired to kill. How many is a platoon how many is in a Japanese platoon? Like 120 each? How many people are in a platoon? Let's see. 20 to 50 soldiers. So they have at bare minimum 80 people on the operation to fuck with you. That's pretty rough. That's like 80 people. That's a decent number of soldiers. I mean, for one person to try and find a way to deal with, that's a lot of people. For the army of a country, that's not a lot of people. Alright, you'd like to imagine a world that could be happy for them? Well, you've found out how these worlds are set up by looking at previous ones, right? I like to analyze what would need to change in order for Rika to win against Takano. I mean, I think if Rika if Rika finds a way to assassinate Takano, that would be assassinate Takano and or the local mountain dogs, that would probably be the best opportunity. But, maybe you can do something else? It's a lot of soldiers to take on. Want to see what's on my mind? Too bad. I'm not showing that to you. Although I assume they'll, magically acquire some plot armor if they keep Tomitake alive. In that world, Rika and her friends survive their struggle. Now, since the soldiers are willing to kill Tomitake, no problem, that's gonna be hard, because if the soldiers are down with killing Tomitake, then you need someone the soldiers actually look up to? And that's not realistically possible. Since everyone higher above Takano is in on this plan to kill the village. Seems like a weird call. In that world, Rika and her friends survived their struggle and just broke through the fate of June 1983. I mean, the easiest way to escape it, it's not your imagination, it's not for me to share with you. The easiest way to escape it is just to not be in the town anymore. But Rika may not be able to. If Rika can live in Okinomiya, that would work. Move to Okinomiya. Then move elsewhere. Just infect the whole world with your virus, and then if you die, you can take the whole world hostage, right? I'm sure the world that Rika's about to create is better than anything in my imagination. Even if she's stuck on June 19th, I'm sure this now ended world will remain one of Rika's brightest fragments either way. No matter how much she struggles. Actually, that's a good plan. Rika has all the time in the world if she wanted to. As long as she's patient. Why not spend a while learning virology and modify the disease so that it can exist anywhere, just to fuck with people? You could do that, right? Make your disease live everywhere, and then if you die, the whole fucking world dies, and you're like, alright, well, you're gonna kill me, but you're gonna regret this, because, you see, everyone in Japan's infected now. Now, you're like, well, most of Japan's infected. You can kill everyone in Japan if you want to. Your call. You'll probably... It'll be pretty obvious once you realize that, once people go and investigate and are like, wow, someone died, everyone in Japan's dead, but you live. That's strange. What made you special? Oh, I had a vaccine. A vaccine already? Oh yeah, we've had it for years, and you know I haven't... Not a clue, just everyone died. No idea. Yeah, that's not suspicious, right? But that would require a little bit of time. I don't think she can spread it to half the country in 2 weeks. Rika takes half of Japan as hostage. I mean, she doesn't actually have to kill any of them. She just has to infect them or make the disease exist outside the region to take half the country hostage. And then no one actually has to die, because the only way things go poorly is if she gets murdered, which is fine. She kind of says, well, are you sure you want to do this? You might regret this. You're probably going to regret this. Because the virus, it's like, oh, I tweaked the virus. It's going to be fun. I mean, she's got more time than most people to do that kind of research, but Rika doesn't seem to have the motivation to do something like that. And I don't mean like, well, she'd never do that. She's too nice. It's more like she'd never do anything because she doesn't have any motivation to learn any skills from her repeat lives. Like, in Groundhog Day, when I forget the character's name. I'm gonna call him Bill Murray because that's the actor playing him. When Bill Murray learns how to play the piano, and that's just repeating one day, he teaches himself to play the piano. He memorizes everything that will happen in the roads. Like, just something like learning the piano seems to be beyond Rika. When you'd think that she'd at least try to, like, do something while she's trapped if she thinks she can't escape. Because she's given up on escaping several times, or just been, like, depressed, but she's never actually tried to, like, do anything that would take time. When you have infinite time, like, it's sure, you can be depressed about it not being escaping, or the inevitability of your painful death, but I mean, you could probably find a way to kill yourself fairly peacefully. I would say fairly peacefully, like, a way that's not as painful so you don't have to care about that. And then you just fucking repeat it for, like, several weeks and try to do something else, like, just treat it as part of your life for a bit. But it's like she hasn't actually, I think as she said in this arc, she hasn't quite decided whether she wants to be an observer of her life or an active participant, so it's like she hasn't even got to the part where she would start practicing playing the piano if she was interested in learning to do that. It's like, I feel like it would be really useful for you, right? Like, she's had all these loops, but she hasn't done anything. She hasn't learned any advanced subjects in school. She hasn't, like, she's obsessively being herself, so she's never improving herself despite having, like, infinite time. Like, imagine if you had 100 years where literally no matter what the fuck you did, nothing mattered. Other than, like, things you improved upon yourself that you could bring forward to your next cycle. Like, you theoretically, I'm sure you'd goof off for a few of those. I'm sure you'd be depressed for a few of these cycles, and I'm sure eventually you should be like, well, fuck it doesn't matter what I do. I guess I'm gonna be better at the things I didn't have time for previously, because, you don't have forever to, sometimes, you gotta admit, like, sometimes you don't have forever to fucking learn to do something, You want to learn a new language, you want to learn how to play a game, you want to do this, you want to do that. If you could repeat the same year over and over, you could probably pick up a different hobby every year. Like, it wouldn't be unrealistic, right? You're like, okay, this cycle, I'm going to learn how to play guitar. And you just suddenly pick up an interest in guitar, and you do nothing but practice guitar all year, every day. You're like, fuck it, I'm just gonna practice guitar. Get really good at it. Figure out the easiest way to acquire the guitar, or a decent one. Become really good, and you're like, die, and you're like, fuck it, that was an alright year. But she hasn't even done something like that, which is kind of disappointing. Like, she can't decide whether to take advantage of her immortality or just, she just, despairs at life. It's sad. No matter how much she struggles, if she actually overcomes her fate, it'll be the most brilliant fragment of her story. I'm sure the life Rika lives makes for a better story than my boring imagination. Because she hasn't even tried to, like, improve on stuff. Like, in ReZero, our protagonist has this curse too, right? Every time he dies, he loops. He has this exact same curse, except he's managed to get through it, mostly because he's way more determined, but also because he gets better every route, or tries different things, right? To the point where he can become a master of... To the point where he becomes a competent combatant because he's fought so many times. Or at least he's fought the same person so many times, he knows exactly how that person will react, right? Subaru is not the worst. Subaru is not the worst, although he's maybe overly determined and has a mental breakdown, you know, every fifth life, because he does remember his own death. I feel like Rika should probably have at least tried to better herself, even if it was in some selfish way, like becoming really good at like the fishing minigame or something. Want to know what happened to Rika? Well, she made a decision to redo her life again with Hanyu. She's trying to live her life with all her might, and this is what she learned from this world. Her next life has already begun, and I wonder what that life's like. I'm gonna go there now to check. Do you want to come with me? Sure. That sounds like fun. Check out Rika's next life, see if it gets better. If she's just narrowing the realm of possibilities to the world she wants to live in. It'd be interesting. Next up, we have the staff room. This will be our extra scene. Okay. Ryukishi 07, what's up? Thanks for playing Higurashi Chapter 7? Awesome. This time around, the scenario was almost like the answer page in a book of riddles. Sort of, yeah. Or maybe the scenario was like a side dish enjoyed alongside all the scenarios up till now. I mean, we got more information, but there wasn't anything that was inexplicable that happened due to Hanyu. That's the one thing I didn't like. We introduced a new character, but she had no relevance to the plot. Like, we introduced a new character that accompanies our main character and main viewpoint character, but they had no value. Other than, like, they could have just been, like, and they could have been an imaginary friend. They could have been an imaginary friend. I think Hanyu should have been a little bit more than that. Even if she was just uncooperative, it would have been nice if she was, at least proven to be capable of doing something. Take it how you like. I hope you enjoyed it. I was very nervous about releasing this scenario because a mystery is only good when it's still a mystery. It is what it is. This scenario marks the end of that mystery. True. To be honest, I didn't want to release this chapter for a while. However, way too many similar stories are being published with no answers whatsoever. A book of riddles means nothing if there's no answer page in the back. Oh, okay. I don't think you necessarily need an answer to all your riddles, but coming up with an answer when you have no way to see if it's right or not is a little sad, you think? If there are no answers, you can't get any joy out of reading a book of riddles. I think you don't necessarily need to know an explanation because some things are better left unknown, as revealing all the mystery takes some of the fun out of imagining the possibilities, but having an answer is good when you're planning for one. I regret to see there are way too many stories out there that don't offer this kind of joy. That's why I decided to release something you can compare your answer to for this series. Since this world has a rather irregular presentation, there may not have been many people who reached what might be called the right answer. It's not really about whether your answer was right or wrong. It's much more about how many questions you raised when reading the story, and how many answers you were able to find. Thank you so much for the solutions you've sent me. They were wonderful theories, and some were thought out so much more than the actual story that I frequently thought about making them the right answer. That's fair if you're reading other people's answers. Your support has given me courage to finish writing the 7th chapter of the series. Thank you for supporting Higurashi. Finally, I'd like to apologize for how I betrayed the Child Consultation Center. I don't know what it was like in 1983, but child consultation centers are not mean places like I depicted in my story. I made the characters look unfeeling, but in reality, the government today is the #1 hero for us civilians. In fact, those involved with child welfare and youth education are all extremely passionate and selflessly devoted people. But they're also prisoners of bureaucracy, as they can't do shit anyway. Sorry for giving them such a negative image in this chapter. The next chapter, Matsuri Bayashi, is going to be the last one of the series. I'm overwhelmed by the pressure of writing the last chapter of Higurashi, which turned out to be such a long story. I hope you'll continue your kind support, and thank you very much. 7th expansion. Ryukishi 07. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Alright.